Thank you all so much for joining us today. We're really excited about this. The panel is going to be the star of the show today, obviously, but we want to kind of introduce ourselves and set the stage for our agenda today for our first Lunch and Learn. So we'd love to introduce ourselves first from Mongoose, and then we're going to kick it over to the panel from Gwinnett and Georgia Northwestern. So my name is Laura Miller. I live in Virginia. We just got our first snow today. That's what we kind of kicked off that weather chat. I work with any new to Mongoose schools from Delaware down to Louisiana, so the Southeast. So anyone in Georgia that is coming to Mongoose as a new customer. So I'm going to kick it over to Tori now.
Sure. Thanks, Laura. I'm Tori. I am the account manager for all of the different schools we work inside of the TCSG system. So I work closely with Carolyn, Legree, and Betsy. I will always brag about them, and I'm super excited to have them here today. And obviously, we'll give you guys an opportunity to introduce yourselves too. But I do recognize some of the names in the chat too. So hello to all of you. It's nice to see your names.
And I'll say hi, everyone. I'm Steph Friesen. I'm the director of sales here at Mongoose. I have been in higher education for about the last 20 years, the last 10 in ed tech. But I most recently served at the University of Oklahoma in their education and research division. So super happy to join today and help support the group as we move through these conversations. Let's hear from our TCSG partners. So Carolyn, you want to say hello?
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Carolyn Duvin, and I work at Gwinnett Technical College. I'm our Executive Director of Support Services.
Thanks, Carolyn. Betsy, good morning.
Hi there.
Afternoon.
I'm Betsy Harris Brackett, Executive Director for Enrollment Processing. So I work with admissions, registrar, international student services, and the assessment center.
And hey, everybody, I'm Legree Price. I'm the Associate Vice President of Student Success here at GNTC. Looking forward to talking to everybody today.
Thanks, everybody.
Great. So we just wanted to remind you all, we really do want this to be engaging and interactive. So if you could please continue to post in the chat. You don't have to wait until the end for the question session for the panel or for us at Mongoose. So please ask your questions along the way. And we are recording this, so we'll send it out afterwards if you'd like to view any pieces of it later on. All right, so the agenda today, I'm just going to talk very briefly about what Mongoose is as a platform if you've never heard of us, or if you have, but you're not completely familiar with where we are now in almost 2026. But most of this session is going to be spent hearing from the panel, talking a little bit about their engagement and communication strategies at their schools, campaigns that have landed well, and how they've been able to better support their students and their prospective students. So we're going to be talking a lot about their texting program, and then we're also going to touch on the brand new chatbot that Gwinnett adopted in October. So the past couple of months, what that's been doing for them. And then we'll end with question and answers for the panel. All right, so to briefly just describe what Mongoose is as a platform. So we were founded about 10 years ago, and we started out as a texting platform. So that might be what you are mostly familiar with. And then over the last decade, we've evolved to what we now call conversation intelligence. So we basically have two hubs in our platform now. We have our conversation hub. So that's where we have our texting. We have our AI-powered chatbot for websites, and we also have WhatsApp as our newest communication channel. And then what we're really trying to develop right now is our intelligence hub. So how can we use AI to give you all actionable insights into your conversations? Our customers have thousands of conversations a year, and you don't have the time to really dig through those conversations and pull out maybe some trends or engagement data. So we want to do that for you with AI. So we'll talk a little bit briefly about how now we can pull sentiment analysis for your conversations, resolution status, trending topics, things like that, just to give you guys a better look into your conversations and how they're going. And then with that, we do integrate with CRMs, just because we know in higher ed there are so many platforms now. So we definitely want to make sure that it's a partnership, that we're working with the other systems that you have as well, so that it's a seamless communication platform that can really benefit the CRM that you're already using. So I'm going to pass this over to Tori, since she works really deeply with the technical system of Georgia, and she's going to talk a little bit more about her partnership.
Thanks, Laura. I appreciate it. I just had the pleasure of attending your guys's Student Affairs Summit that you hosted a few weeks ago, and it was really interesting to meet with a lot of different partners who are both current Mongoose users and prospective Mongoose users. So we just wanted to share with you a little bit about the work that we're already doing in the system. So we have 2 partner schools on the call today, but we do work with 5 different partners inside of the system. So some of y'all might might recognize your logo on there. As a whole, we've had over 1 million conversations across the 1,000 different institutions that we work with. So Mongoose supports K through 12. We support traditional 4-year higher education, technical schools, 2-year system schools, and a couple of nonprofits. And out of that, we work with folks all the way from the entry point of I'm interested in attending this school, all the way to when they become hopefully alumni and graduates of your respective institution. So that's just a little bit of the background. Like Laura had mentioned, I get the opportunity of seeing all the great work that's happening inside of Mongoose. So just wanted to give you guys all that for context. And if y'all have any sort of follow-up questions for any of the schools that are using Mongoose, you know who to reach out to. And then this next slide, Laura, I'm going to pass it back over to you because we have a question that we want to ask everybody for. Oh, and it looks like you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Is this Slido working? Is it presenting?
It looks like it did not present in Slido form. So let's bob and weave, as we tend to do in higher education.
Yeah.
And let's ask the question, what's your biggest challenge when engaging prospective or current students? And if you could just drop your thoughts in the chat there, we'll call those out. While we're waiting for those to come in, do any of our panelists have an answer to this? Or as you think back to when you started your evaluation of a texting solution, kind of what challenges you were facing that you were hoping to solve for?
I'll kick it off with students don't read their email.
It's true. I like to say I have a 24-year-old kiddo who literally lives right there next to my office in my house. And the only way that I can communicate with them is via text. And we live in the same house. Any other communication method does not work. Let's see, I'm seeing some in the chat there, getting them to read the information, meeting them where they are, leveraging technology, getting them to respond, student feedback. Would you guys agree with that, Legree?
Yeah, I was actually going to mention Samantha's comment about meeting them where they are. I think that was the biggest issue for us, is not just on the email side, which yes, students do not read emails, but we were noticing that at different stages in our student life cycles, students were engaging better with different types of communication. So in some stages, especially during the admissions cycle, they were working well with mass updates. But then once they hit being a student and us trying to retain them, we just weren't getting the same type of engagement, the same type of response rates and things like that from mass communication. And so we really had to start delving into look for some different types of technology, some different types of ways of texting in order to be able to continue to create that engagement and hopefully retain them long-term throughout their life cycle. And so that's kind of where we started looking for some different options on the current student side.
Got it. And I noticed some folks in the chat are talking about having wrong telephone numbers. I think that's certainly a challenge. And also, every time the phone, I know I'm bringing up my kid a lot, but every time the phone rings, my kid like stops and just doesn't, it's like they don't answer the phone anymore. So phone numbers, yes, if you're going to phone call for sure, that's a challenge. Carolyn, anything you wanted to add?
Yesterday, I went through our recruitment office and they have on their whiteboard a list of questions that students ask And one of them said, "Do I actually have to read the emails that you send me?" So I think the sentiment that everybody shared in the chat is spot on for what my perception is.
Yeah. Maybe I should ask my boss that. Do I actually have to read the emails you send? See what I get back from that. All right, Tori, back to you.
Thank you. So now I'm going to ask you that, Steph. Do I actually have to read the emails that you send me? I'm joking.
Yes, Tori, you do. But I could text you to remind you to read your
That's
emails.
very true. Well, we really wanted to kick this conversation off just to set a little bit of a foundation about each of your different institutions. I know working with both of you all that you have very different communication goals and very different things that you're achieving just based on what the needs are of each of your technical colleges. So I would love for you both to start. And Betsy, I'll have you start since you're already off mute. If you could just share more about your communication goals.
Okay, so Gwinnett Tech uses Mongoose for the most part for bulk messaging. So one of our goals is to make sure that the critical information is actually getting into the hands of students. So we've already talked about students not reading their emails, but there's also issues that with some of the email platforms that they may be marked as spam because they're being sent out in group. And so our number one goal is to make sure students get the information. So oftentimes, if we have critical information like a student was dropped for non-payment or a student was dropped as a no-show, we will send out an email from the registrar's office, and then we will also send out a text blast to students from Mongoose to alert them that you've been sent a very important notification from the registrar's office. Please refer to your email. We'll use smart messaging and ask, do you know how to get to your student email? And if they need assistance and indicate, yes, they need help, then that smart message will send them information about how to get to their student email. So number one goal is to make sure students get the information that is critical to them. Our second goal is to demonstrate that, number one, we care about our students, that we are invested in their success, and we want to leave students with a great customer service experience. So there's several of us on our teams who will, just like we keep our email open, we have Mongoose open all day. And we're just monitoring for any messages to come in. We find that once students have gotten good information from an interaction in Mongoose, they kind of save that message, and just out of the blue, they may respond with another question. And so we make sure that we respond to those in a timely manner. We, will get out of our role. And if it's a question that's not in our wheelhouse, we will find the answer, make sure the student has the information. And we always end every interaction with a student with us having the last word. So we've got some templates created that, thank the student for reaching out and letting them know that we appreciate them, and that if they have any questions in the future, we're here. We don't want them to come away from their interaction feeling like we were a bot. We put a personal touch on it so they know it's a human on the other end. The third goal is to maximize use of technology to reduce barriers to enrollment and retention. So, like everyone in the system, our enrollment has just continued to grow. We reached a new enrollment number of over 13,000 this fall. And so we've got to think creatively about how we can engage with students across our institution. So we've got a number of divisions at Gwinnett Tech are using messaging. And so the bursar's office, we use it for the foundation. Enrollment uses it, special populations. So again, we look at our interaction in Mongoose as a group effort. We've sent out text blasts to as many as over 10,000 students at one time, and we get an all hands on deck memo out to everybody of, have your Mongoose up and help respond to any students who reply. The smart messaging has been really awesome, so that students, when they respond to a message, we can provide the links to them that they need without having our platform raise flags with the providers. We meet students where they live, and they live on their phones. So we want there to be a friendly, helpful, live person on the other end.
Thank you for sharing that. And the same for you, Legree, too, if you can share kind of a foundation of your communication goals as well.
Yeah, kind of like I mentioned earlier, a little different than Gwinnett. Ours, when we first came to Mongoose, we were really looking for a kind of a stopgap fix. We have utilized another texting service on our admissions kind of recruitment side. But where we were really seeing a desperate need for student engagement and interaction was once the student became enrolled and kind of transitioned from our admissions and recruitment team over to our retention side, we really saw a loss of communication, and we also saw a difference in the need of students. For most of our students who come through the admissions process, they're really looking for updates on documentation. They're really not needing that one-on-one engagement as much as those mass updates and really just kind of being fed the information they need to get through that process. But once a student is in class, they're trying to engage with faculty, they're trying to engage with our various different departments. There was really a desperate need for the flexibility of a software that would allow us to transition to both mass updates as well as one-on-one communication. And so with the software we had at the time, that just wasn't going to work for us on the goals that we had to deliver that kind of customer service mentality on the current student side. And so we really wanted to be able to provide students both one-on-one interaction and mass update capability. And so that's where we kind of leaned in to Mongoose to be able to use mass text messaging as a way to lead into one-on-one conversations with our academic advisors, our staff advisors, our accessibility services department, special populations departments, career services, as well as we did that, we saw other teams within the institution that had that same need to be able to engage with their students in that similar way. And so the team aspect of Mongoose became a big selling point for us to be able to differentiate communication between various teams on campus, whether that's our adult education department, our academic affairs department, hopefully in the future, our alumni interaction, and to be able to engage with them without muddying the waters of everybody jumping over the top of each other to engage with students using the same numbers and the same information. Me being the AVP of Student Success, we're always trying to find better ways to engage with students and to guide them through the enrollment life cycle. And so being able to do that with various different means of communication helped us a lot. Again, that one-on-one versus mass, but also the ability, like Betsy said, to use smart messages as a way to engage with students, to be able to both get feedback from students. So we use this a lot for polling students or to find information out from students, and then to be able to pull that data to be able to utilize it in various different means, but then also to be able to make mass changes quickly. So we use it for being able to move students from, for example, when we're doing our update terms of where we're wanting to roll students, we utilize this as a way to be able to pull their responses from smart messages out through Excel documents, and then the process changes really quickly after pulling that data after 24 hours. And then finally, we want to strengthen our student connections. And we do that through all those various different means to be able to try to engage students in a way where they feel like they're being communicated with the way they want to be communicated with. We really try to create a student-ready institution mentality where we are ready for the type of students that we receive. And our student body, our average age is 28 years old right now. So we have students that are coming in that are dual enrollment, or they're coming in as a 17, 18-year-old student into their freshman year. And then we have students that range anywhere from 35 to 85. And there are various different types of communication method, and some wanting to just be told information versus others that want to be engaged in that information. We need a platform that has the flexibility to be able to do that as well. And so this has been a good fit for us.
This is awesome. I think, and Steph, you can go ahead to the next slide too, because it's very interesting to hear that you guys both have very similar goals around just like eliminating those barriers, making sure that you're available to students, and the customer service piece too. When we were building this deck and you all had put your goals, I was like, that's so cool that they both have a goal around customer service. And so we wanted to be able to provide the larger group with a little bit of data to provide some context on what's going on in each of the technical schools programs. You can see that they're scaled differently, but you all have had a lot of similar successes. So it makes sense that something like a Gwinnett, where you had mentioned you're pushing out more of the mass text messages, you would be a little bit under the response rate compared to something like GNTC that's really looking for more of the engagement size. But I will tell you both, I mean, to push out 500,000 messages in a year and to have a 7% reply rate, I would imagine you probably don't have that same reply rate in your emails. So you both have had so much success, and it's interesting to see the numbers kind of speak for themselves. I know one of the things that were talked about in the chat was like, we're always looking for updated phone numbers, or we're looking for data, and you guys can see that you've done so well at building your program that you're achieving a 97% plus delivery rates. The average tends to be around 90. So you guys are well above that, and you guys are doing wonderful. And I think the opt-out rates too really speak to the points that you all just spoke about people wanting to engage in this channel. Just for some context for people who maybe don't have any sort of texting programs, or this is a new concept for you on this call, the national sort of average tends to be between 2 and 3%. And I could have an entire webinar of like why opt-out rates are so important, but to see you all well under 1%, I think it's just amazing to see all of the great work that you guys are doing, and the data is showing you that people want to engage in this channel. So I'll stop talking now, because the question that I have for you all is, how are you all measuring success based on the engagement that you're getting, based on the data that you're getting from Mongoose and the responses that you're getting from students?
Well, I'll speak first. I think we are seeing increases in our retention. We are seeing increases in enrollment. I think the low opt-out rate speaks to our success with this as well. We try to make our messages not mundane. We try to establish a common voice. We do training with the teams that we have across campus on what our expectation is for how messages are delivered, and making sure that we are responding to them with the last word. We don't want a student to reply and not get a response. So it's a very humanistic approach. Carolyn, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that we look at success when the students say thank you at the end of a message. Even if we're telling students you've been dropped for no show or dropped for non-payment, we usually provide them information about their financial aid. And that's, if they say thank you at the end of that message, that for me says that we've had a successful interaction with those students. And Betsy talking about the enrollment, our executive director of enrollment support every year gets our time ticket report, and we send messages out every term. You can see the highest activity months. That's when registration opens for all of our terms, right? When we are having the highest communication with students. So you can really see where and when things are happening based on the data that we can get from Mongoose.
And I'll also speak to one other, the platform of Mongoose allows us to go look at, as the one of the administrators for Mongoose, I can look across all of the teams and see what volume of messages have gone out on any particular day. So we try to stagger so students are not getting bombarded with messages all at the same time, so that they don't get overwhelmed. So we kind of want to pace things and keep it engaging without being overwhelming.
Yeah, and I think you can tell for us, as I mentioned, a lot of our communication is being done really on the student registration side. So we jumped back into Mongoose about a year ago, a little over a year ago, and we really started with a major focus on our risk alert systems, as well as our staff academic advising, our first semester academic advising programs. And because of the nature of both of those programs, we really are intending for there to be a lot more one-on-one conversations within those. And because of that, I mean, you can see that based on the message to contact ratio. I mean, we're sending a lot of messages to one specific contact back and forth, which I think is why our response rate is as high as it is. But kind of like you mentioned, the activity months, all of those months are right before the start of a semester. So we're getting down to the crunch time when registration is kind of closing out. We're having to answer a lot of questions. Our number one trending topic inside of Mongoose is registration and holds at like almost 50% of our conversations within that particular team. And so those are things that, by and large, in the past, we were having to have those conversations one-on-one with individuals over the phone or through email. Email just did not work, not only because they don't read them, but because it's such a slower version of communication. It delayed a conversation that had to be much more quickly given and much more responsive because there were deadlines and there was time constraints, and students had pressing questions they needed to know the answer to now. But our students don't want to talk on the phone. And so we were in this conundrum of being stuck between two platforms that just didn't work for the students that we had. Texting has been really beneficial for that, for us to be able to have some of those engaging conversations, to get them in touch with the people they need to talk to, and to be able to do it in a way where when it gets to an important place in the conversation where we need to talk to them on the phone, they've already engaged with somebody one-on-one to where they built a relationship, and then we can kind of lead them into that phone conversation or Zoom conversation, WebEx conversation in a much more natural way that doesn't feel as off-putting to students who just don't love those types of communication methods. They're not comfortable with those in the way we might have been, or we are, especially post-COVID. So
I had one more question to go back to kind of just like the success that you all are having in the system, just looking at like the high engagement rates, the low opt-out rates. And we'll get into some specific examples for people who are on this webinar today to see like, what the heck are they sending out that's working so well, so that maybe you could take away and do it yourself in your own texting programs. But do you think that there's anything in particular, what do you think has attributed to having such high engagement rates and such low opt-out rates?
I think smart messages help a lot. For us, having the capability when we have something that would typically be a mass communication going out that doesn't really require a response, but we want to engage with students, we want to respond with them, having the capability for them to respond with a preset answer and then be able to then build a conversation off of that has really helped with our engagement and response rates, because it doesn't end the conversation with that mass text. And so that has helped a lot, especially when we're sending out something saying, hey, do you need help with academic advising for this semester, or hey, do you need additional resources in this? Or hey, do you have questions about special populations? If they can respond back yes, then we have somebody immediately who gets that answer and then is able to go, hey, what questions do you have? Actually, it sends that out automatically, and then they respond with the question that they have for that, and then we can answer that promptly, which is just it just works much better to engage students to actually communicate, whereas a mass text just doesn't always do that. And so I think that's helped tremendously.
I think for us, there's a couple things. One is that we have buy-in from our team who's using Mongoose. So it's not like we send out a blast and then we turn it off. Like we are engaging in it like TargetX, like Banner. And it is part of our everyday routine and use. I think second is quality of the data going in. We're scrubbing and making sure the population who should be receiving the message is correct. So students are getting things that are pertinent to them. And then I think 3 is our commitment to students coming away with a positive interaction, that the message is applicable to them, the quality of the response or the smart message they're getting points them to the information they need. And again, are having the last word of saying, thank you, hope you have a great day with their name. I think, we're committed to a quality interaction. So
Thank you both for sharing that. I appreciate it. And I think these stats too, not to overwhelm everyone with stats on this call, but I think these stats also are going to speak to, Betsy, you were mentioning just the quality of conversations that you have. I think what's really interesting across both of you, when I was pulling these data for you both, is that you're very similar in where you sit as far as your sentiment. So for anybody who doesn't use Mongoose that's on this call, one of the things that we're able to measure for the folks who are using Mongoose is not just how many conversations are going out, but how are those conversations being received. So we have something called a sentiment analysis feature, and there's more on that. If you're interested, you can let us know. But for you all, it's interesting to see the majority of your conversations are resonating as something like appreciation, and the neutral is kind of what sits in second for you all as well. And sometimes AI is the thing that's reading this. So sometimes if someone says thank you with a period, that could be looked at as neutral versus thank you with an exclamation point. That can be looked at as appreciation. But the point I'm trying to get to, what I thought was interesting is you guys had mentioned how high your contact to message ratio is. And for each of you, this is actually new data I'm sharing with you all live on a call, was that your appreciation scores both increased by 8 to 9% when you had 4 or more conversations with the student that you were having. So I'm just saying that to validate all the things that you were saying about they want to be engaged with you. They're coming out to you guys and they're asking questions. You guys are making sure that you have the sort of last response. So just wanted to add a little bit of that there. So we'll start with Gwinnett, since that's the slide that's on the screen. And then, sorry, Legree, we're going to make you go second again. Ladies first. But I do want to hear from each of you all, if you can speak a little bit about, I know we've spoken about some of your engagement already, but if you can share a little bit more about the engagement strategy that you have behind your Mongoose and texting program. And if you just want to share a couple of examples of any particular campaigns that have landed really well, or if there's any campaigns that you've learned from along the way, that would be super helpful for our audience to hear as well. And Carolyn, I kind of see you laughing about campaigns you've learned from. So I don't know if you're dying to share anything.
I do have a really good example. So we know that in the state of Georgia, the technical college system is not a community college system, but our students use us that way as a transfer portal. So we developed a transfer tips workshop that we did online. And I was like, we are going to ask students if they plan to transfer, and then I'll respond back with the link if they plan to transfer. Holy crap. That was not a really great session, a really great message, because wow, that freaked people out. Like, why are you asking me this? I don't understand. So I learned a lot from that message. We got high engagement, but my wording was not on point at all.
So it is a learning curve, and I was trying to remember with Carolyn when we first went under contract with Mongoose, and I've been here so long I don't even know. But it has been a learning process, and so we save all our old smart messages, and we learn from those. You know, what wording has worked the best and is received most positively by students. I get to be the one to send out the blast to students about scholarships that are available through the foundation. If you tell students that there is free money, you are their hero. And the response is always positive. And this year we had a record number of students apply for scholarships. So that was really great. Legree, we can tag team back and forth as I think of anything else.
Yeah, I mean, for us, just trying to think back to learning curves on campaigns, it was trying to figure out when and how to use certain aspects of the tool for what purpose. And a lot of that was just learning curve with smart messages in general, like what made for a good smart messaging campaign, what made for a good regular output campaign, how do we direct these to either individuals, how do we direct them to shared inboxes. And so that took a little while for us to determine which one worked best. And I'll give a good example of one that we had not too long ago. We, as many of you, if you work in or around career services, when we get anywhere into the summer months, it becomes scrambling for us to try to figure out where our students went and what job they got and where they should fall in our placement algorithms. And so some of that comes through DOL data, some of that comes through good old-fashioned Facebook stalking. But we started utilizing smart messages as a way for us to engage with our students as they near graduation, at the time of graduation, and post-graduation, to help us engage with them to find out where they're at, have their job positions changed, are they utilizing it for a specific purpose. And that worked out really well for us. Now, the wording had to be very specific based on where they were at in their enrollment cycle. Because again, like Betsy mentioned, or Caroline, I can't remember who said it, you don't want to freak somebody out by asking them like, hey, have you gone somewhere else? But that helped us to engage in ways that we hadn't been able to in the past, because really, I mean, after the 20th time of you calling somebody asking them, hey, where are you working? They don't tend to answer the phone as much anymore. And but when you're engaging them and giving them an explanation of why and a way out of the conversation at the end, they tended to respond much better. We also use this a lot with our student success coaching as a way to to engage with them early within the life cycle to try to prevent them getting to our early alert issues. So engaging and trying to find where students were at and how they felt about their program early on in the semester to try to prevent them from having an early alert ticket put in on them, having a Teams alert ticket put in on them. So using it almost as a feedback tool to say, hey, how do you feel about your classes right now? And if they reply back something like, I don't feel great, or whatever the automatic response is, it would say, well, what do you not feel great about? And then when they were able to respond back to that, we had student success coaches who were there to respond to those, provide them resources, and engage with them. And I think those worked really well when we were able to kind of figure the process out in that.
Yeah, and I'll just jump off of mute and say I forwarded the screen here just to kind of show everyone what smart messages look like. So this is the case that Betsy was talking about, something similar with regard to scholarships available. Do you want more information? When the student says yes, this message automatically goes back out to tell them, here's where you go to get some more information. And then I know, Tori, did you want to talk a little bit about this postcard campaign?
Yeah, for sure. And this is another smart message example. This is from the GNTC account about how they were reaching out, asking if people were thinking about registering for the upcoming semester. I wanted to call this out to give you an example of just, again, how great all of your work has been going. You had a 22% reply rate, which is actually 7% higher than where you guys are sitting at on average. So really, Carolyn and Betsy had mentioned like the quality of the content is so important. This is an example that shows that. 29% of people asked for your self-registration guide. 48% of people asked to talk to a program advisor, which I thought that stat was just so important, that there were so many people who wanted to connect with a real human being, and you guys are providing them with a channel so that they can make that connection happen. And then what I thought was really interesting is that a lot of people were like, A and B, send me the guide and let's book an appointment. So just wanted to give you that example. And then I know that we're coming up at time. So maybe we can jump ahead to the chatbot piece, because I do have a couple of questions, Carolyn and Betsy, that we want to make sure that we ask before we leave here. For anybody who has to hop off right at 45, please feel free to do so. We'll follow up with all of this, but we will stay on for a couple of extra minutes for anybody who has questions. So feel free to use the chat. So just for context, Gwinnett Technical has been a partner of Mongoose since 2018 is what I think it is, not to date either of you ladies. But because we're all 25, but you guys have had a lot of traction that has happened. So, and you guys just launched in October. You've had already over 4,000 conversations that have happened from 24 unique users. So, a question that I wanted to ask you all is like, why did you choose to adopt the chatbot as a tool? And sort of, what successes and what learnings have you had so far?
So, we've been really overwhelmed with just the total amount of interest and communication expectations that our students have. We had been using a LibGuide chat, which was all person to person. There was no computer mediation. Students were chatting live with an individual. And we were getting a lot of feedback that it was students were asking a lot of the same questions. We were running out of ways for our financial aid staff to be on chat and still be able to do everything that they needed to do. Our call center, we have 4 individuals who answer the phone for our entire college, and they were monitoring chat. So they were getting pulled in a lot of different directions. So we'd had a chat bot. Another product with a different like platform. We call it Dumbbot because we had to train it on every single question. And it was really frustrating. So that lasted like all of 2 weeks because students stopped using it. They really stopped. Mongoose has been, one, trying to sell this to me for like 5 years. Two, working really hard to improve the product. And so after, over the course of time, we've really been able to see how this bot works really well for us. What we've learned is the bot's trained on our website. So we kept asking the bot, we call our bot Griff. We kept asking the bot questions and we weren't getting responses. And we weren't getting responses because that information does not exist on our website. So we spent a lot of time reviewing and talking about what does our website need to have? How do we get students this information? I also really enjoy the process of training the bot. Many of you don't know me, but I love talking. I love engaging. And so training the bot is as simple as me writing out 12 different ways to say, you can change your major by talking to your advising team. If you want to change your major, you can talk to your advising team. And working with Courtney, my chatbot person, my customer success person, to be able to get that updated. We've seen an increase in the conversation. Like the other piece was when we're not here or when we're not able to answer the chats, students can still get this information. And the other thing that we've been learning, in addition to like where our information lives and how much we have for students, we make a lot of assumptions about what students should know. And so we're finding that out through the chat bot. But our call center had gotten really used to answering every single question that students have. And now the bot answers a lot of the questions, and then the students have to either say they didn't get a good response, or that they want to talk to a human, and then our call center pick up from there. It's been a big change for them. It doesn't feel as personal, but they're able to handle a lot more stuff, and it's not as stressful for them. So that is one of the reasons why we use the chatbot. There are some functionalities that we don't use because we don't have the people capacity to be able to do that. But man, you can do chats and text to the same person if they give you your cell phone number, which I think is really neat. We'd love to be able to do it, but we just don't have the people resources to do that.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. And I really, it has been really cool to see the amount of different types of visitors who have visited your guys' website site so far. So I'm very excited to see where we are 12 months from now with this. So I know that we are way past time, and I appreciate you all for staying on for an extra couple of minutes. And I saw that we've had a couple of different things come in the chat too. So Tamika, thank you for sharing your experience with Mongoose. We appreciate that. If anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I also dropped our Mongoose phone number in the chat. If you want to learn more about Mongoose, if you text that number, you'll actually get a follow-up with our 2-year benchmarks report, and you can text us anytime at that number, and we're happy to answer any questions that you all have. But I really just want to say thank you, Betsy, Carolyn, and Legree, for taking the time to be a part of this today. I know it's a very, very busy time across the technical college system right now, and we just absolutely love working with you and love your partnership, and really just wanted to kind of spread the word of all the great things that you're doing. So I know Rob is on here. So Rob, make sure you send them a good job email. And thank you all again for being here. So it was nice to see you all, and happy holiday season ahead.
Thanks,
Thank you so
everybody.
much. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.